So we're back, and hopefully the sound will be a little bit better this time. Is not even to apologize, but just to say things happen, especially when there's not like a multifaceted team. And I enjoy the fact that I can contribute the way I can, but it really is just myself. And you know, until it becomes something more, and don't think I have an ass, but until it becomes something more, sometimes you just want to get things flowing. And if I'm constantly worrying about how the stream is flowing, and if the mic and the bot, somebody might donate a body mic, and if not, I eventually will save up for some. But I know what my given circumstances are, and I'm thankful enough and grown enough to not feel as though I have to explain that to anyone. So the question is, and I hope that people can hear you better, we were talking about the 13 colonies and the United States and the Republic, and the difference between the Republic and the actual corporation. And what do you want to expound on today, real quick, if we were to have 10 minutes?
We can...
The cat came. So you see this. Nobody can see this, but there's a cat that came in the window.
Wow.
So now he's behind you in the window. But this
Awesome.
always happens with us.
Big up to Best
Either cats, old people,
babies.
or babies. Okay, continue.
Big up to Best
And you can speak up probably just a little bit.
Yes.
Not to direct you, but...
how we go is, we were talking about the colonies. And the colony as opposed to the state. Everything that you read from the United States, right, is technically a redistribution of information that was left over from the previous government. This United States government, as you understand it to be, is really only about 240 years old. Well, look at it like this. The country is 239 years old. It's been at war for 222 of those years. So that should let you know that any place that is perpetually at war cannot be a country. Therefore, everything that's being done or executed as a country is done under a military or war amendment.
A war amendment?
A war amendment is something that was established during a war and was supposed to go back to peacetime, and the amendments are done. The war amendments are done after the war's over. However, in the United States, every president that becomes president of the United States has to perpetually sign in the state of emergency upon their first official act. They got to reinstate the same emergency that started from the Civil War, that really started amongst the Cherokee people, the original Cherokee nations. There's a book you can get called Confederate Cherokees, the story of John Drew's regiment. John Drew, people didn't know, that's Noble Joe Ali's father, bless the prophet. And he had a lieutenant in his army who used to take orders from him, who was named Albert Pike. Albert Pike is the guy who, after the Confederacy War, started the whole KKK thing, as well as rewrote the pseudo-Masonry doctrine and injected all the Luciferian and Satanism and heavy homosexuality into it through his morals and dogma.
So prior to that,
that means...
But it wasn't as Luciferian?
Well, yeah, Masonry existed, and it existed as a means, and anciently it was used as a means by our people to civilize people who weren't a part of our nation, and to give them forms of deep sciences that were passed down to us orally, but was given to them through symbology. So it was always a tool of civilization. It's never really a means to go in. So
Noble Joe Ali, 1938, the Republic.
Right. So the war amendments that was already signed in are all the amendments that really started with the 13th. The 13th Amendment, once it was finally ratified, the 13th Amendment with the 20th sections, this is what they killed Abraham Lincoln for, because that reestablished the fact that those people who were outside of the United States after the war now had the right to go back to their own country. Their own country at this time was the previous government that preceded the United States. So to block that, they got a bunch of Christian preachers, black Christian preachers, to bribe them, as well as they got a group of white women an order of white women they refer to as the Daughters of the American Revolution. And they got them to seduce and sleep with a lot of legislative aspects of Moors from the old republic, so that way they could dilute them, and therefore they would not go back to their own country, because now they were perpetually stuck in the United States, whether it be by marriage,
What
contract,
year was this?
whatever. This is between 1854 and 1899.
And why was that an important time?
This was an important time because this represented Reconstruction, the Reconstructional history that was put forth on the world, where for instance, the Mercator map, the map that is totally wrong, where it's got Greenland twice the size of Africa, all that stuff, all of the miseducation about people, black people coming from monkeys, all of this happened through Reconstruction, through the Reconstructional period of history. There was the Reconquista, then it was the Renaissance, then it was the Reconstruction, right? Then it was the Revolution.
And you're saying that these things took place in specific periods of time,
between 14, yes,
disintegrate, to dilute, and
to put everybody in a perpetual state of war, by which the United States could claim jurisdiction through war amendments like the 14th Amendment.
Okay, so what is the difference between the 14th Amendment and that?
The 14th Amendment is something that was used to describe aliens, meaning the new history that was being brought up, where black people all came as slaves from Africa. Anybody that subscribed to that understanding or that history, and not their own history, meaning them being born here and never coming from that place they call Africa, those people now were put under a alien aspect, meaning that they were made foreign to the land that they was born from. That's what the 14th Amendment did to blacks, Negroes, coloreds, and people who claim descent from the continent of Africa, or
so
who
what
refer
is the
to themselves
difference?
as African Americans.
And what is the difference between a citizen and a national?
A national is a descendant of the true American citizens who existed prior to the establishment of the 13 colonies. The 13 colonies themselves were, at the time, the only place where the world, where everybody understood the word or world England to be. So when we think of the 13 colonies between the 1700s and the mid-1800s, we're talking about, England at that time, we're talking about the 13 colonies. There was no place called England over there in the 1700s. That place was called Albion. So that means then that when you talk about New England, or you talk about England in the 1700s, the 13 colonies, the lord proprietors of the colonies, those who made the deals with the Delaware Lenape, the original so-called British, the people who really had the Union Jack flag, all of that was over here. So what they did was made us foreign to ourselves, based upon the fact that we were always born here, but they made us believe that we were imported as slaves from a place called Africa, which then put us in an inferior position, which took us out of the national position. The national position being that we as Americans, we were always descended from the people who was from over here. There's no record of me. If you can't have no record, I can't be African American if you can't label where in Africa I'm really from. If you call me an African American, you're calling me two continents. You're not calling me an individual. It's not like saying I'm an Irish American, because an Irish American can go back to Ireland. An Italian American go back to Italy. A Moorish American is significantly tied to the Moorish experience and the Moorish Empire, which was a global empire but had a consolidated central government over here that reconsolidated itself as the United States of America in General Congress Assembly.
So it still exists?
Yes, we're in it right now.
Who, when you say we're?
Anybody that's on the physical landmass of the United States is in Alamanos Estados, aka
whether
the
they know
American
it or not,
continent.
but you have to understand that sounds crazy, because not a lot of people.
I'm going to explain why.
Okay.
The continental United States, right? That represents North, Central, South America. That's the land, everything on it and in it. The corporate United States, the corporate jurisdiction, is all of the businesses that were incorporated through the Roman Curia in 1871 under the title United States of America, Inc., which is filed as a corporation and Lloyd's Bank of London right now that is officially bankrupt, that has now went into receivership and has now been made a disregarded entity by the same Roman Curia that incorporated it, i.e. the Vatican. Through the motu proprio, the Vatican put out an edict that said that the United States and any corporation that's attached to it is no longer backed by any lawful law in the world. That everybody that lists themselves as a public official or a public servant is then by definition a criminal. This is their CEO. This is the CEO of every corporation.
Translation in
that means that every cop, every judge, every lawyer, every whoever, anybody in any municipal federal system technically is a criminal.
Wow.
Based upon the Pope telling them that.
So recently, can we just, even if it's 2 more minutes because we're at 11,
Sure.
Recently a lot is taking place with the Pope. Can you just maybe let us know why right now specifically?
Because
in
as he has disregarded all of the Western world or the Western European corporations, he's disregarded them totally. They don't exist anymore. So they've all been kind of, put out.
Okay.
So as they've been put out, they've now created a vacuum. There's a power vacuum now where nobody is co-signing Western technologies, Western finances based upon anything connected to the United States. Because everything connected to the United States, so-called government, is coming out of Washington. That's the only place where the United States exists.
Wow.
It doesn't exist anywhere else. It
Not
only exists
District of
outside
Columbia or just
Washington, D.C.
Wow.
It doesn't exist anywhere else. Actually, Virginia just took land back from D.C., so it's actually not even a 10-mile square of its main radius. It's actually now more like 6 miles within the general D.C. area. That's the only place where the United States exists. That's it.
So this is
the only reason why it exists anywhere else is because they extended the corporate colorable jurisdiction through getting people to sign up under terms like white, black, African, West Indian, Hispanic, and then they get incorporated into the United States through the 14th Amendment, which is a war amendment, which then makes them basically hostiles on United States territory. And the United States now has listed since, I think, the Clinton era, that the whole country is a battleground because the United States is being forced now to reduce itself back to its original jurisdiction. And that's what the Pope is coming here to do because he ain't got no choice.
so to seal this up.
He's going to all the original capitals of our republic. He's going to Philly. He's going to he's going to Philadelphia Shaker-Mexum, which is Philadelphia. He's going to El Sanguine, which is New York, and then he went to Cuba already. So you already know what the prophet did there. And I believe then the last stop is Virginia.
Wow.
So after that, it's a wrap. So those of us that don't have a nationality should get one. Rest in peace, brother Mansour Ball Bay, which again in the next one we'll get into what that was about in terms of a ritual and how the United States is even in more trouble now because that is really an international incident.
Sometimes I just want to stop you and say I'm so proud of you and then go at the same breath, what is this? It means so much. And at the same token, I've watched this knowledge drive many a man insane.
That's why you need God in your life. That's why you need some sort of spirituality and the love of a good woman in your life to center yourself, because if you don't, and you are trying to bring all of this together just by yourself,
this is why you have to back up and let it burn, let them burn, let it burn.
Render unto Caesar what is Caesar's. Let the dead bury the dead.
Yeah.
Inshallah.
We will
and we'll
continue.
see you next week.
And with that as well, it's saying, and when it does, new life always emerges.
That's right.
And the seeds
and
that are being planted, the seeds that you planted over 13 years ago are just now starting to harvest. So we give thanks. We say thank you, Creator. We're at 14 minutes and 50 seconds. See you soon. Peace.